If you're gonna play a green healer though, you may as well just play Evoker now.
Okay, those are fighting words.
We'll come back to that at the end too.
Yeah, give me dragon form. All right, well, it is a 4:02, so I think we will go ahead and get started. If you are joining us in Twitch or the Discord event, thank you, welcome. We're so happy you joined us. And also thank you to A Night Off for hosting us, especially Jazzy. Yay, everyone loves Jazzy. Just a quick introduction. I am Broccoli's in-game. I used to stream a lot as my alias was Yes Like a Girl. I am a contributor to Questionably Epic, as well as a moderator for quite a few Discords in the community. Druid Discord, Stankies, if you know him, his video guides, and then one of the Mythic Plus communities. And with me, of course, is Volk, the creator and mastermind of Questionably Epic. It's his baby. Volk, did you
I made it to slide 2. Alright, so for people who aren't familiar with us or the tool, I would highly recommend you check out the main site. The URL is on the slide that you can hopefully see now. It contains a lot of awesome resources for healers. It's mostly focused on Resto Druid and Mistweaver, but honestly, you'll find resources for every healer spec here, especially through QE Live, which is going to be the focus of today's presentation. It's also going to have a ton of Evoker stuff as we slowly move in towards Dragonflight launch.
Yeah, I know everyone's looking forward to that Evoker stuff. Before we dive too deep into that tool, I did just want to interject since Volk is really bad at praising himself. I just want to introduce him a little bit more. He created QE in 2016, which was a really long time ago, with the intention of providing hyper-tested, always up-to-date theory crafting on Resto Druid without excluding anyone in the community who wanted to learn. He always encourages asking questions and keeping the knowledge share super accessible to all skill levels, which I know Anno is really involved with as well. It quickly moved into the other healer spaces, and he noticed there was a gap in the community's ability to sort of understand their best gear or how to plan their path of improvement as a healer. And like DPS has raid bots, but up until QE Live, no one had dared to create anything more than those. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the complicated, convoluted spreadsheets for healers, which were often incorrect. Don't mind me. Mainly because of how difficult it was to sim healing. It's quite difficult to do because it's not as rotational as DPS. Volk, however, whether it's because he was brave or just crazy, he decided he wanted to do more for the healer community. And so, of course, he created the QE Live tool. When I saw what he was doing, I obviously wanted to be a part of it. If you know me, you know I'm a huge advocate for making any effort to improve yourself as a player and a human being. I love keeping that easily accessible to everyone in positive, welcoming environments. And so, of course, I got involved with the Resto Druid aspects. That is my main. And then I introduced the one-page per boss PDF raid guides, which you guys might be familiar with. That will continue in Dragonflight. So yeah, everything on QE's remained free, fully accessible, as well as open source, which is just amazing for a tool of this magnitude and value. So yeah, our main goal is just to help the community get better at the game we all love in a way that's welcoming and not elitist, which is important to us while also remaining that top level quality for even world first raiders. World first raiders have used it and asked you for help, Volk, isn't that correct?
It is also it's crazy, by the way. Brave or crazy, it's always crazy.
It's always crazy, yeah. No,
I
we're not
honestly
sane, that's for sure.
I can't believe it's been 6 years already. Like that time goes really quickly.
Yeah, that's actually insane. All right, well, if you want to go to the next slide, now that we've hyped up the tool, we're going to dive into the actual demo and teach you how to use it. There's, as we mentioned, there's a ton of guides, but I'll let you guys explore that on your own since the main focus here will be demoing the tool and teaching you how to use it. So yeah, we've got coming up is the top gear and quick item compare. This is the bread and butter of the tool. It includes easy ways to import your gear using the SimC add-on. And then it analyzes your existing gear, your potential options, multiple iterations, and will output what gear you should be wearing. The next thing we'll talk about is the upgrade finder. This was introduced in BFA, yeah, well,
Yes.
BFA-ish era. It allows you to quickly identify what content you want to be running for your biggest upgrades. That way you don't have to scour through the dungeon journal. And then, of course, for Shadowlands, we have Covenants, Conduits, Legendaries. These obviously aren't going to continue into Dragonflight.
Thank God.
Yeah, for better or worse, we think better. But any Dragonflight system will continue to cover as well. Next would be the trinkets. That one's pretty quick, but it's just a list of trinket power. Some trinkets can seem misleadingly epic, but they're super weak, so we know everyone's always super excited about the trinket module. And then I think the thing y'all are excited the most about, and we are as well, is to show you the cooldown planner. It's our newest feature. It's technically not live yet, but we are so excited to turn this feature on publicly in Dragonflight and give you a sneak peek today. You guys can actually access this tool today if you have the secret web address, which I'm sure we can give you, and you guys can start playing around in it. Technically not live, but we love y'all, so yeah, you'll be able to play around. Volk, do you have a favorite of those features?
It's gonna be a tie for me. I like fight analysis, so I can see who's stealing all the PIs. I'll show you that in a little bit, and it's the Warlocks. It's always the Warlocks. But I think Top Gear is like my baby. Like when I first created QE Live, Top Gear is the thing I wanted to work towards, and I couldn't quite get it in BFA because it's a lot of work. And then in Shadowlands, I finally managed to send it live, and that's definitely
I
the thing that I'm
remember.
most excited about.
Yeah, that was just
Just
so nice.
a way to do all of your gear at once. And for those who know how gearing works, every piece of gear you get is dependent on all the other gear you have, which means the only way to truly do it accurately is to do all of your gear at once. And that
It
was just a breakthrough for me.
it's so funny because I can't even remember like the before time, like where I'd have to sit like thinking about what to take from my vault or whatever we had to worry about. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine it without Top Gear.
And it kind of just wasn't possible. Like you could get stat weights from WoW Analyzer or from a spreadsheet, and they would tell you what was best with your current gear. But because they couldn't do everything at once, you were always dropping a few percent of accuracy every time you did it. And
Yeah.
it's so nice. And it was slow. It's just so nice to be able to do it all at once and fast.
Yep. And without thought, but also, like I mentioned, QE's open source. So if you're ever concerned when I double check folks' math, you can, which is great. But yeah, we could ramble all day on that. So let's go ahead and get into the demo, shall we?
All right, so it all starts as setting up a character in QE Live. Let me tab to my completely fresh version. You'll start by picking a game type. Wrath of the Lich King isn't quite out yet, but we'll be supporting that too. So I'll select Shadowlands and I'll create a character. Every healing spec is supported. We're going to create a Holy Priest today.
What? He
Look,
didn't get
it's the most common spec
approved by
right now,
any.
okay?
Yeah, I think Resto Druid, but
All right, you can add all of your alts here at the same time. You can add more characters. If I wanted to say add my Resto Druid,
do
I
those
could do it here.
races, how you selected Void Elf, does that play into any of the algorithms you have?
Yeah, a little bit. So your racials are always taken into account. I don't want people to feel like they have to pick a certain race for power because Blizzard have actually done a really good job at balancing them all out throughput wise. So they do feature in the math, but you'll find that it's usually pretty minor and it's usually not enough to actually change any gear decision you have to make.
Cool. All right, so I'm new to QE. I've got my character set up. How do I identify my best gear?
Yeah, so this is definitely the biggest thing in the tool. Something I'll just quickly guide your eyes to before we get started. It supports Mythic Plus and Raid, but you have to tell it which one you're doing right now. So it defaults to Raid, but if you're interested in dungeons, you can just change it up here. Often your best gear for raids and dungeons can be slightly different. If you're a healer, then As you progress through Mythic Plus, you'll eventually start dropping stats that only add healing for stats that add healing and damage. For example, giving up Mastery for more haste or crit or versatility, which has particular value from a damage reduction perspective as well. So this is our main menu. This contains all the different modules. You'll notice Cooldown Planner says coming soon, but we'll have a little way around that later. Top Gear is the main one, so we'll click into here. Alright, so Top Gear uses the Simulation Craft in-game add-on to tell QE Live everything you own. Yeah, everything. There's a link to the add-on inside QE Live if you don't have it yet. So once you hit Import Gear, there's a nice little link to download the add-on from Curse. It's the same add-on that DPS use to get their gear, so you might already have it if you have DPS ults that you've run through raid bots or something in the past. Alright, this is my priest.
Ooh.
I
Just
know.
kidding. I'm
It's
kidding.
it's
I
the
love
meta
my priest.
spec. Alright, I typed /simc into my chat, and this is what it brings up. You honestly don't need to read this, you don't need to know what it says. All you need to do is... Whoops, I deleted it. Don't do that. All you need to do is type Control C to copy it, tab back over to QE Live, and paste it in.
This is just from the Blizzard. It's essentially what, like their API strings that you utilize to.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite complicated in game. They use
Oh
all these
yes, let's
things
not
called
go.
bonus IDs. Yeah, that can be a conversation at the end if we need. We'll be using my Holy Priest today, but every healing spec is supported. So the first thing you'll learn here is that I have way too many items and that I probably need to clean out my bags.
Yes, if this is what yours looks like, you can hit me up and I'll help you organize a bit.
It appears that the last time I cleaned out my bags was Nathria. How long has it
Oh,
been since
people.
Nathria? When was
No,
Nathria?
we need to quickly move along.
Oh no. All right, so Top Gear is designed to be as simple as possible. All you have to do is click the pieces you're interested in and then hit go. It'll automatically select everything that you're currently wearing to make it easier for you. And so you only need to pick the pieces that you're interested in comparing to what you're currently wearing. So,
One of the nice things too, you can notice that like Leech and other high value things like that is highlighted in green text, so easy to spot them.
okay, I'm just gonna say, look at this trinket collection.
Yeah, no,
This is
can we scroll
beautiful,
back up?
stunning.
This is giving me some
All right, so we'll
anxiety there,
select a
bud.
few more items. You'll see it tells me how many items I've selected down the bottom and what the cap is. I've tried to make the cap as high as possible, but because of a fun math concept called combinatorial explosion, you sadly can't do 100 items at once, or it would take 4 or 5 years to run.
I don't
But
see why that's a problem.
I mean, true. Given the last time I cleaned out my bags, if I'd started it then, I might
Yeah,
have my best gear now.
give me the options I want, Volt.
Once you've selected all the pieces you're interested in, if I need to select that, I'll hit go. It usually takes a few seconds to load, but not too long. And then that's honestly it. It'll show you what items you should wear. If you hover over the gems, it'll tell you what gems you should wear. Any items that you don't currently have equipped, like this Elegy of the Eternals, will be highlighted in yellow just to make it a little bit easier to know which items it changed. The average stats panel here will tell you the stats in the set. And then this little panel underneath it will show you how close the other sets were. So if instead of equipping that Elegy, I stuck with Scars and Soles, it would be about 11 HPS difference. When they're that close, you can kind of treat them as side grades, since I don't know about you, but 11 HPS is not too significant for me. And that way you can,
Huge.
yeah,
My
huge,
parse, Volk.
minus 0.06%. Honestly, with the way I use Scars, it's going to be bigger than that because it's going to kill me 5 minutes into the fight.
Sometimes I will use that panel if, for example, it's telling me to wear something super low item level because of Leech, and it's just a very minor difference. I might wear the higher piece because of the stamina value. So yeah, you can look at things like that.
Yeah, you might also have a favorite trinket, or maybe
You
a
set it
trinket
on
is close.
use.
Exactly. Maybe a trinket is close in value,
Talking
but
about
it's easier to
myself.
use. Or it might go the other way, like maybe you want an on use for a particular moment and you notice it's close in healing anyway, so you choose to equip it. But it's
Very
really
true.
focused on giving you the information you need to be able to make gearing decisions like that. If we go back, there are a few other things it can do too. It can help you pick a vault item. To do that, I sadly don't have a vault to show you, but I'll show you how it works. You will open your vault. It will have items in there because you won't have picked it yet. You'll type /simc with your vault open, and all your vault items will automatically be added to the bottom. And then in app, they'll also automatically be added to your selection. So it can honestly be as easy as typing /simc and then hitting go right away because it's auto selected all your vault pieces and it will only ever put your best one in the main set.
And it will highlight them in a light blue-ish, so it'll look slightly different than that light yellow highlight, just so you can tell easier.
Something else you can do, gearing is a little bit different this tier, and that not only can you have pieces drop, you can also use the catalyzer to create a tier version of the item, or in the case of slots that don't have tier items, you can create items with different stats. And so sometimes you might get a juicy item, but you don't want to drop your tier bonus, and so you'll catalyze it. You can do that in QE Live by hitting this little button here. I'll find a good candidate for it. I have some good gear here. I have a lot of stuff, but
I should hope so.
if I take these legs, for example, these are not tier legs. If I hit the catalyst button, it'll automatically add a version that I would have if I catalyzed them. And then I can hit go again and it'll run it with that tier piece instead of the old legs. So that can be a really good way of just sort of testing out combinations before you catalyze anything. And that works for vault items too. So if you have like a big 304 leech piece or something drop in your vault, but you know you have tier in that slot, then you can test out how it would look if you catalyzed it before you pick anything.
Super useful. And you could also do stuff like that with legendaries and stuff you haven't made yet as well through the. I'll just let you walk through adding items.
Yeah, so sometimes you might have an item that you don't have yet and you want to test it out in your set. Might be a legendary, might be something you're looking at from the auction house or something like that. You can type it in by name here. So this is the priest legendary flash concentration. Any priests in the stream will know it well and probably dislike it at this point.
What?
You can, yeah, look, at the end of the stream, we'll go through that. It has some problems. It's fun, but it has some problems.
Just reroll Restodra and get it over with.
Don't tempt me. I'll pick the item level of the legendary that I want. If it's your main, it'll probably be 291, but I'm sure a lot of you have healer ults and you might not have a lot of money, so you might add them at 249, or maybe it's a Mistweaver and you don't want to invest too much in it. You
What?
can select some. What? Mistweavers are great,
We
but
have
look, we
Mistweavers
all
in the
have
channel.
ults. We all have ults. It could be a Disc Priest, here. Everyone's used to ragging on Disc Priest. You'll
That's
select
true.
the missives that you want to use with it. Say Haste Versatility, and then you'll hit Add, and it'll add it to your selection.
And you can do that with literally any piece of gear in the game if you're just curious if you don't have it, but you want to see if you should get it or not.
Yeah, you could add. I know from my bags you might think I've already got every single item in the game, but it turns
Mm-hmm.
out there are a few that I don't own. So I could
Don't
test,
believe you.
say, an Amalgams at 298 item level. I could add Leech or Avoidance or a socket if the item can take a socket. And then it'll just add it to my selection. It's easier to see what's been added to the selection when you don't own 200 items, but here we are.
And
Hey,
then you
look.
do, of course, have to push go again.
Yep, so I can hit go again, everything that I've just changed. Honestly, most of the items I added weren't that good, so I'm not expecting much to change except for maybe the pants. Even the pants didn't make it. And so because I added mostly bad items, you can see it didn't actually change anything, but hypothetically it would be reflected here. It also
Very cool.
supports every single covenant, so I'm looking at a Night Fae Priest right now. But if I swap to disc, then I could select Venthyr or Kyrian, which are the main two specs for main two covenants for that right now. For
And you
Resto
want to go
Druid,
over how to change those basics? And then I do have a couple of
yeah,
questions
sure.
for you as well whenever you're done with the main demo for this.
So I briefly showed how to add characters here. You can also edit the characters that you already have. So this is Volk Priest. It's currently a Void Elf, and I can change the covenant here. Maybe I'm going Venthyr for a fight. You don't have to worry about the stat weight panel anymore. All of that is automatic, but that's there for some specific advanced cases. And then I'll hit save, and now you can see I'm a Venthyr Holy Priest. It'll let you do any combination, even the ones that are maybe not as meta, like Night Fae Paladin or Venthyr Druid.
And your stat weights in that panel actually get updated behind the scenes when you're running top gear, correct?
Yeah, so because every piece of gear is dependent on the other gear that you have, each top gear set of gear basically generates its own weights because it's the only way to do it accurately. So if the set, and it will test every set. So if you're putting 30 items through, it's actually running through millions of different combinations of items on the back end. And
Ooh.
each of those million sets will have its own set of weights dependent on how many secondaries are in that set. So if a set has a lot of crit, then adding another crit piece to it will be of lower value than, say, adding a versatility piece to it. If a set already has a lot of leech, then the next leech piece will be devalued since the more leech you get, the lower value the next leech piece is, and so on.
Before we go to the audience questions, you did mention there was a lot of math going on behind the scenes, so I just wanted to ask a question for myself. Just confirming, when you say backend, you actually mean you are there with a pen and paper, calculating for everyone before it sends it back to them, correct?
Yeah, for each of the million sets, I have a page in my notebook, and I just sit there and write away. Carried a lot of
Yeah,
ones.
he's on a hamster wheel. All
Turns
right,
out
so
I
we
don't know how to
do
program, so I just do it all manually and send it through.
we do have two audience questions, so if you are done with your portion of the demo for that module, I'll get
I
to the
do
questions
believe
with
that
you.
is Top Gear. Yep.
Okay, so some top gear questions. This one is really good. The question is from Pan, and it is, are the healing profiles generalized, or will there be different healing profiles to pick from? For example, a steady rot boss fight, burst phases that last 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, etc., etc. Is there any way to handle that or plans in the future?
Yeah, sure. So the default model it uses is a little bit generalized. It'll take the backend is based on a whole bunch of logs, so it'll take a lot of logs from a tier, and then it'll take averages on a lot of things. There's some criteria so that it's not including logs that are maybe not a good representation. For people who want to get really specific and deal with specific types of fights, there's a log import. So you can hit insert log here and then paste a Warcraft logs link, and that will make the report more closely follow the boss you're working on. So if you're working on Lords of Dread and most of your healing is based around huge 1 minute windows, then it can do that. In Dragonflight, I also have a completely new module called the Sequence Maker, where you can get really, really up. The name is not final. You can get really specific and you can design sequences yourself, and then you can optionally gear around them. So in a
Very
fight
cool, very
like
cool.
Lords of Dread, we really only care about Swarm. There's a little bit of healing outside of it, but Swarm is 90% of the damage. You could design a set of cooldowns for that, and it'll tell you how much healing your sequence will do, and it'll basically be a big sandbox where you can play with it. And if you're happy with it, you can even have it automatically pick your gear around it.
That's very cool. And then I know sort of along the same lines, there's that optional settings. I don't know if you covered
Yeah,
that. I don't know that there's many options for all classes, but there are some.
yeah. So there's also this little optional settings panel, especially when it comes to specs like Disc Priest, which have some big choices you can make that alter rotation, like Avenge versus Spirit Shell currently, and Dragonflight that's going to be a bit different, but for now. Um, and so you've got a little settings panel here. If you're a beginner, you can leave everything as it is, but if you're looking for more advanced customization, then there's probably something for you here. You can play with the play style, and I can add stuff here if there's anything particular you want to see. Holy Priest doesn't need many options since, sadly, flash concentration is completely dominant. You can set the number of allies that have trinkets like Hymnal so that you're representing those correctly. You can automatically add sockets to items and stuff like that.
Along that hymnal answer that you just gave, I'm going to go ahead and pop in a question from Delandris. They asked, how do you determine the value created from on-use trinkets for top gear? Which is a great question, especially considering trinkets like scars, for example, and hymnal, of course.
So the question was around representing the increased value of combining on-use trinkets with cooldowns and stuff, right?
That as well as like how do you calculate scars value? I know that one's a unique one.
Yeah, so I'll start with scars since that's a very unique trinket. So for people who aren't that familiar with scars, there are 5 different stacks you can get. Every time you hit the trinket, it adds a stack with a bunch of secondary stats and a curse effect. The curse effects can range from less healing received, a bleed that ticks over time, and then a really nasty one at 4 stacks that adds a slow every time you cast an ability. So you're basically playing a fight with a 20% movement penalty,
But a ton of stats.
but a ton of stats.
Yeah.
And so this is honestly a trinket that should have a setting here on the panel where you can tell it how you want to play the trinket. Currently it doesn't, and it plays it at a safe 3 stacks, which is less stats, but also is unlikely to kill you. If you are looking for a big healing pass or something like, or you're a
Or
druid with
your Resto
infinite
Druid.
mobility,
Yeah.
yep, then you can play it at 4 stacks, which would be higher value, but I wouldn't recommend it in prog scenarios unless you're a high mobility spec or you have some way of negating that massive healing
Or you're just
disadvantage.
trying to farm parses. But but
Yeah,
yeah, like
on
for me,
farm,
for
absolutely.
example, when I use QE Live, I know that it's considering 3 stacks, but I'm a Resto Druid, so I'm gonna have it at 4 stacks for the entire raid. So I know to give it a little bit more value. I think you also mentioned like how does it calculate using it? Does it use it perfectly? Does it use it sub-perfectly? How do you calculate on-use trinket value?
Generally, trinkets are a more realistic use. I think calculating stuff with perfect value is a little inaccurate in a lot of cases, since even a world first player isn't likely to use anything to its absolute maximum efficiency. And so for most trinkets across the app, it uses an average log value for them. And in Dragonflight, the settings panel here is expanding a lot. There's actually going to be a full trinket section on it where you can make small changes that might determine how strong something is. So you could increase the efficiency of it, the average overhealing if it's a flat healing trinket. You could change stuff like Hymnal or Scars. And so that's coming in Dragonflight. I would describe it as something for power users, but I definitely want to make sure that people who do want that kind of fine tuning have the support they need.
Yeah, and Delanders asked an additional follow-up question, what is an average log, like top 100, top 1000? And I think that's a great answer. He sort of mentioned how it's utilizing average quote-unquote logs, but there are qualifications to avoid, super cheesy or super bad logs and things like that. Did you want to talk a little bit more about the
Yeah,
number of logs?
so I usually avoid the top 20 or so logs, not because they're bad play, but because they're usually not representative of a prog scenario, especially later on. They're full of infinite innovates and infinite PIs and stuff you're just not getting in a progression setting. So I cut those out, and then I usually, whenever it's available, I usually take 4 or 500 logs after that, and that's the base of the model.
And I think it's important that you use the word base as well, because like we test this a lot. We have a lot of testers as well, so anything that doesn't match up with our expectations and experience playing the game, obviously we'll take a look at the algorithms and data.
It's
So
very closely curated for sure, very
yeah,
closely.
you won't see it recommend something weird. But also, yeah, when it's suggesting to use an on-use trinket, I wouldn't say it's based on perfect play. So you can get more value if you're really good at your ramps for us to do it or disc. You might get more value out of a 2-minute on-use cooldown. But it's also going to give you the value it displays, even if you're bad like me. Like it's not expecting perfect play.
Yeah, I try and really focus on realistic scenarios as often as I can. Like, this is not healing against the target dummy kind of stuff. This is actual lived in experience kind of thing. It's real fights, it's using real data, and I think that's what keeps it so accurate.
Yeah, definitely. And like sometimes we call it a backward sim because it's not a sim. Simming for healing is extremely difficult because of the many nuances, but it takes a lot of data and is therefore almost as accurate as a sim.
We've actually found that so we have some sim tech even on the QE Live backend, and just whenever we it's just always worse than
Yeah,
using
than
log
actual.
analysis. It doesn't give you the results that are actually useful or applicable to a fight. So we've found this model works the best, even if we do use a little bit of sim tech on the back end in some cases.
All right, one more follow-up question, and then probably time to move on to the next module. But I think this is a pretty good question that I might answer first. Is there any plans to be able to adjust that aspect to different performance levels? I think that's really interesting because we definitely want you to make the right choices for you, and that might not be a pro player choice, obviously. But at the same time, QE is designed for player improvement. And so, like, I'm really bad at on-use trinkets, but I've gotten much better, and I won't let myself use that as an excuse not to use a really OP trinket, for example. So there's like some levels where we want to give you flexibility, but also we really want to encourage you to try and to be open to trying things that are just like flat out very strong, even if you're not super comfortable with it. But if, like, for example, you never want to use an unused trinket, you can just unclick it and you don't have to even include it in the gear compare. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, which some people do. Like, it's definitely an okay choice to go, okay, I'm never going to be able to use this correctly, so I'll uncheck it or
Yeah.
I won't seek it out, and that's reasonable too, especially with a trinket like scars, where it is very
Yeah,
dangerous.
it's very risky. Or for me, for example, I rate lead, so my brain GCDs are probably 50% on my own performance and 50% on everything else. So sometimes I just know, like, I'm not going to use this trinket as good as I should, so I'll pick a slightly worse trinket. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Will probably force us to move on to the next module if you're good with that, Volk. I believe it is
Yep,
the
works for me.
so your new character, you set up your tune, you've simmed your top gear, or not simmed, backward sim, whatever we want to call it, your top gear, and now you're trying to identify what upgrades you should go for.
So back in the day before Upgrade Finder, you could just add all of the items manually and compare them that way, and that's not very fun, and it's very slow. So the Upgrade Finder is a really good place to find upgrades.
No
Sometimes the name
way.
just fits, okay?
If anyone
Uh,
has any super creative, cool names to suggest, yeah, feel free to do so.
I like my nice basic names. You get exactly what it says. All right, just like in Top Gear, we'll start with importing our gear. If you've used other modules in the same setting, then it's automatically going to hold on to it for you. It's not going to make you re-input it. But let's say we were brand new here. We would do the same as last time. We would type /simc and copy it over. Our settings here are pretty straightforward. We'll tell QE Live which difficulties we raid. All 4 are available. We'll tell it what level keys we do. We'll go for Mythic plus 15 here, but really anything is fine. Past Mythic 15, it's also got support for different Vault item levels. And we'll tell it our PvP rating if we are that way inclined. That's it, we hit go.
That easy.
It's that easy. On the back end, Upgrade Finder is actually running a top gear with your gear plus each item in the game. So it can run a little bit slower than top gear sometimes, but you should still find it very, very fast, like under 30 seconds fast. There's a lot of information here, but it's hopefully categorized pretty well. All of our different content types are up the top. And then because this is a bit of a special season with multiple raids, I've included all 3 of them here. All of them on fated difficulty because that's the current season. So if I flick down the page here, I'll see every boss, every item, and how big an upgrade it is for me. If it's a downgrade, it'll gray out just to make them a little bit easier to see.
I think this screen is really nice for if you're a Mythic Pluser, you can target dungeons that you're looking for in Premade Finder, or hit up your guildies that have that key you need. And then for raid, if your raid leader is trying to figure out who to bench for what fights, it gives you a really quick view to tell them like, oh hey, this boss is a huge upgrade for me if you can get me in for this boss. So yeah,
Speaking
tons
of
of
which, I could use some trinkets if you get me in for I
yeah,
in a
okay.
couple weeks' time.
Oh, we'll see.
Not a lot of upgrades from it. I'm pretty geared.
Yeah.
I'm looking good. See, trinkets.
All right, settle down, Volk.
It also has support for Legion time walking, since this is a little bit unique among time walkings, and that it has Mythic Plus. So this will show me all the Legion Mythic Plus dungeons.
Yeah, I think this module is pretty self-explanatory, but if anyone has any questions on this module, feel free to ask. It takes, like Volk said, a lot of math from Top Gear and just runs it against the possible gear combinations you can get.
Something I will show here is that, say I did want a trinket, I can click upgrades by slot here, and it'll actually show me all of the items in that slot at once and where they
Yeah,
drop.
this is a nice view.
So that way, if I know I need a particular slot, or if I've got a slot that's lagging behind, then I can just come here instead, and it's going to show me all of them at the same time. So as you can see, raid trinkets are pretty good for me right now. I could use quite a few of them.
Good for Dinars, Dinosaurs.
Yeah, actually, these could be getting Dynard after this presentation. Could probably use that Shadowed Orb.
I'm glad we're doing this so Volk can update his gear since I have to heal with them, so. Oh,
It'll
actually,
also...
don't upgrade your gear if you can go ahead and,
Oh, so you can heal more.
yeah.
It'll also show you how big a percentage upgrade it is. If you're in the type of guild that prefers you just give how big an HPS increase it is, then that's an option too under settings. I can change it from show percentage upgrade to show HPS, and that'll do the same thing again, but instead of plus 1%, it'll tell me plus 50 HPS, and that can make it easier to compare among healers sometimes. It's really just whatever you prefer. There's also an option to automatically add Leech to every item. You probably won't need that one as much, but given the strength of Leech, you can sometimes feel like you're in a scenario where you don't have any more upgrades. And trust me, that'll show you that you have upgrades. You just need to get really lucky.
And we do have a question. What does plus NAN mean? I don't have the yellow percentage numbers. It says plus NAN.
That sometimes happens if you enter a SimC that's missing a slot, or if you enter a SimC that has an agility weapon or something like that. The error messaging should probably be improved there, but it basically means it could not run it successfully for one of those reasons. If you flick me your SimC after, I'll be able to tell you
Yeah, so
the
that
source of it.
shouldn't, yeah. I would say either slight user error or like bad coding on our part that's not clear. But yeah, if you ever encounter that, like we do have a QE Discord and Night Off has a partnered channel in there. You can pop in any questions. We'll help you out anytime.
Particularly when you import your gear. If it highlights in red, then it'll tell you that there's something a little bit wrong with the set.
He
Uh,
says this might help. She does have a lot of time walking gear that might be messing with it.
yeah, most time walking pieces should be in. You do see the odd piece that misses it, but flick me your SimC and I'll get that fixed up this afternoon.
All right, I will probably go ahead and move on to the next module since I think that was all the questions we had there. So you've identified gear that you want to go for, and now it's time to raid. This is the part I think everyone's the most excited about seeing.
The raid cooldown planner. Okay, this is, I'm gonna say ahead of time, this is an in development module. I
So
think
it's
it's
back to
mostly done.
perfection.
It's very usable, but if you do encounter the odd bug, let me know and we'll get it tidied up. It's definitely not quite in a release state yet, but it's really close. It's really usable, and I think you'll like it. All right, so you'll notice the cooldown planner is still coming soon. We have to hack into the system by typing the ultra secret link. It's cooldown planner. No one will ever guess this. We'll also make sure there's a link to it available so you
Yeah,
can just
we'll
click
post
it and you don't
it.
have to type it in. All right, this is your cooldown planner starter screen.
And then Volk is on his local host, so don't type in the addresses you see up there.
Oh yes, yeah. This is
We'll
technically
post it later.
yeah. You can try this. It probably won't get you
I'm
anywhere.
curious what it'll pull up, to be honest. Someone's working on something on their end.
All right, so the first thing you'll do is to add your roster to the system. This is a completely fresh QE Live, so my regular roster isn't here. I will add them. You can also import this from a log, but this is how you do it manually. It supports every healer spec and also specs that do healer related things. So if you have a warrior that has shout or a death knight that has AMZ, you can include them too.
Yeah, this is gonna be super popular for raid leaders. This is sort of trying to make I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with like Visero's healer cooldown spreadsheet. Very similar to that, but tons of awesome functionality and auto import export stuff.
Druidy Druid is an acceptable name for a druid, right?
Druidy druid, yes, definitely.
You can add notes
Extra
by any
druidy.
thing that you would like.
2 druids, no thank you. That means 0 fun for all other healer specs, including the
A
second druid.
monk as well. This is a gamer comp
Uh,
right here.
okay, no one gets to heal.
And I'll just add a few utility specs here. You can import all of these
Wait,
automatically.
next raid leader, what?
You're being replaced by Druidy Druid. I didn't know how to tell you this.
Which one of you is druidy druid?
If you see anyone called Druidy Druid, just watch out. Alright, this will probably do. We'll add a DK. Since we clearly don't have a lot of DR in our healing comp here, double Druid, Priest, and Monk.
What are you trying to say?
It's a great healer comp. I love it. It looks really good, but lacking in DR tools, perhaps. Alright, so we have our team, and it's clearly a good one because it has 2 Druids. Let's
Yep.
plan some cooldowns. We can pick a raid. Oftentimes there'll only be one raid there. This season is a bit of an anomaly, so we have all 3 options. We pick a boss. I always find that Lords of Dread is a really cool boss to plan cooldowns for because it's very deliberate. We have a difficulty selector between Heroic and Mythic. And then you've got a few different ways you can add cooldowns. The one I think that there will be the most hype over is the automatic mode, also known as import plan from Warcraft logs. So what this will let you do is take a log with a similar healer comp to you and steal their cooldowns in the nicest way possible. Borrow their cooldowns.
Borrow. Yeah, we like to call
Borrow
it
their cooldowns.
borrowing.
That way you don't have to do any of the planning yourself. You can just take a guild that's a little more progressed than you with a similar healer comp. Doesn't have to be the same, but a similar healer comp, and you will use them as a base. You can still change stuff afterwards, but it's going to save you maybe 80-90% of the work. Also, love whoever changed their Discord name to Druidy Druid. Brilliant.
What? I'll
Alright,
be
so I'm going to
DMing
grab a
you
log
later.
here.
We will have words about how awesome Rester Druid is and good luck raid leading.
Alright, so it shows all of the fights in the log. We're interested in Lords of Dread. We'll let the log import. It's pretty fast. Alright, and then we can either import them as is, or we can put our own healers in place of their healers. So instead of whatever that monk is called, I can't pronounce that. Must be European. I'll swap them to our monk.
I suppose.
Broccolis can take over Thebox cooldowns,
I got
and
it.
Druidy Druid will do the rest. You're not going to have a perfect match for their healer comp, like they have 2 Shadow Priests. Who brings 2 Shadow Priests? So you can easily just select to
Gotta bring
not import
3.
their cooldowns. Volk Priest will take over for Jayland. We don't have any Shadow Priests, so we won't import those. And then we give it a name. You have a number of options up here. Boss timers aren't always perfect. Like maybe you have a swarm at 1 minute in, but someone uses a trank at 1:05. You don't really want to show those on separate lines since the trank was clearly for the swarm and it was just being used slightly after because that's smart play sometimes. Or you might have a him a second before. And so smart will actually automatically line those up wherever it can. And so that's the default, but you have other options here if you want to play with them. So we'll hit add here. And it will automatically add all of the dangerous abilities from the log and all of the cooldowns that we used against them, but it's slotted in our healer names instead.
Looks so good.
With stuff like Swarm, often the strategy for Swarm is to pop a bunch of cooldowns in the first 10 seconds and a bunch of cooldowns in the second set of 10 seconds, so you can see those here. We could throw all of those on one line if we wanted to, so there's a little bit of data massaging we can do or small bits of tidy up we can do. Hopefully the app will take care of a lot of that for you, but you can easily edit lines if you want to add anything to them. You could also make little changes, like maybe I don't want a him there, I want a him in the second half, so I can move it to the next line. It's very easy to make little changes like that.
Yeah, as a raid leader, like this is just a lifesaver. I even love like the boss ability icons and just making it super clear what's what.
And then once you're happy with it, the most important part is to get it to the rest of your team. So you've got a few options here. You know that's the most important. You want me
No,
to use...
don't tell them so that you can win at HBS.
That's true. You could just assign all of them to one line and you to the other line, and then they'll all override each other. There's definitely
That's
strategy to
stupid.
this.
Yeah.
So you've got a few different ways to share with your team. You can export the note and just copy paste this into your healer channel, and then they can import it into QE Live and see all of the cooldowns. And then there's the ERT, or now christened MRT note, where you can pop your exact cooldowns into ERT or MRT, and with the use of a couple of weak auras, which we'll share, you can have it pop up when you have to use your cooldown, and you can have it display on your screen so you know when your next cooldown is.
And if you're familiar with MRT notes, I had to correct myself from saying ERT. You can see in this formatting that they're color coded. It has spell ID icons. It's already formatted exactly how you'd want it to show up in a note. The time functionality you can see if you can read that tiny text will actually like count down once the poll starts and it'll alert you at that point in time. There's weak auras that go along with ERT notes, and this all functions with that. So yeah, it's just a phenomenal that took Volk what all of 2 minutes to do, which now takes like 30 minutes plus.
Yeah, it's designed to be very fast, and we're always looking for ways to make it even faster. There's some technology in the works that might not be out for a while that will auto search a log, so you don't even have to find one. It'll just match up your healer comp. And so there's a lot of stuff coming to make it even faster.
And you can, of course, manually import everything if you're like really into just starting from scratch and not copying people's cooldowns as well. But yeah,
Yeah, I'll actually go into that now. So quickly on this note export, you'll notice there might be some boss abilities where we haven't assigned anything to them, like this Infiltration of Dread. You wouldn't actually use any cooldowns there, and so you have the option to just automatically hide those rows. It'll make your MRT or ERT note just a little bit more trim and easy to read. So you've got that too. If
super
you
nice.
are world first rating, or if you don't want to grab someone else's note, then you can also do your cooldowns manually. So I'll show you that now. So this time it'll start you with all of the timers so that you have a base to go off, and then you can just pair up your cooldowns against each of them. So it's still doing some of the work for you, but in this way you've decided, all right, I want a little bit more control. I don't mind if it takes a bit longer. You'll just select which cooldown you want to slot in, and then you'll just pick it here. It even has support for the dark covenants that are never chosen, like Ravenous Frenzy, Kindred Spirits. I'm gonna slot your Trank in there. We're gonna make you use all of your cooldowns here,
What?
actually.
Wait, that's what I do.
including Stampeding Roar. You're gonna have a hell of a
Wait,
swarm.
oh, okay, no, I didn't agree to that.
Yeah, there are utility cooldowns in here as well if you want to assign stuff like Stampeding Roar and Windrush Totem, so that you can make sure those are in the notes too. Once you're happy with the road, just hit save. You can edit it at any time. You can move stuff around if you want. You can even add rows. Like, let's say there's a mechanic you're interested in that isn't here, or if you want to add a row for your Windrush Totem, but it's not really against a mechanic, it's just at a certain time, then you can do all of that in here as well, just by hitting the add button. There's also a search, so if you just want to say your raid leader has shared a note and you've just imported it, you don't really care what everyone else is doing, you can type your name in here and it will automatically filter the entire table to just the lines that you have cooldowns on.
That is actually phenomenal. Your raid leaders will love you if you take the time to import your raid leader's plan or healing officer's plan and just search your name and like really think about the mechanic you're countering with your heals. Yeah, oh, they will love you.
Timers can be a bit off sometimes in game if Blizzard likes to create a mechanic where the timing is not deterministic or if it depends on your DPS. And so you can change the cast times in here as well if you're experiencing slightly different. And of course, log imports will use whatever timers are in the actual log. So a lot of that is kind of automatically taken care of.
We do have quite a few questions for this section. Did you have anything else you wanted to share before the questions,
I think
or?
that's all on the cooldown planner.
All right. The first question that was asked, which I think you maybe have already covered, is there an option to blow all cooldowns near the end of the fight? So pretty much, I think this is sort of a parseler question. If you want it to just automatically put in any cooldowns you have left at 8 minutes when the fight is over, just plunk everything here. But I think right now you just have to do that manually, yeah.
Yeah,
But you
or
can
you
do that.
you could also just add it to your MRT note, just a nice pop everything.
Which actually, that's a good question too. Will it let you pop Broccoli's Trink 5 seconds from when I previously casted it? Like, will it let you make mistakes like that?
It should warn you. The idea is that control is ultimately with the player because sometimes you will know better or you'll have a certain tech or talent that'll make a big difference. But it'll warn you. It'll be like, all right, something's not quite right there. Just check it and make sure it's fine. And then you can decide if it was a mistake or if you know better.
Yeah, very cool. And things like that, I think, are also feedback we're looking for what you guys want to see to make this easier.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I will move on to the next question. Some of these might have been answered. Is it going to be able to extrapolate via log the raid DPS of the team to determine phase timings from bosses like Zymox? I know that in the healer spreadsheet, there's a drop down where you can input your timers for phase one, phase two, phase three, and it automatically updates the timers on the boss mechanics. Is that something you plan to add to this eventually, or?
Yeah, cool question. So if you're using the log import, it automatically does that for you. It has pretty good phase detection. It kind of depends on how Blizzard show the phases there. If it's percent health based, easy. If it's from a certain mechanic happening, then I think we've got most of them in. And then because the timers are based on the ability in the log, it'll automatically update them based on what push timing you have. So it only really becomes difficult if your push timing is wildly inconsistent, at which point it's kind of still working, just the timers aren't going to be accurate. You're
Good
mostly
luck.
just doing it for like Swarm 2 at that point instead of Swarm at 2 minutes, if that makes sense.
So pretty much when you're searching for a log to import for your baseline, you would either use, a deep prog log from yourself or find another raid team with similar DPS, which I think mixes with the next question, which is there going to be a search functionality to find logs with similar comps, timings? And I believe you did mention that that was a upcoming feature.
Yeah, so for now, I'll make a guide page to show how you can grab them in Warcraft logs without too much effort. The next step in the app, which we definitely don't have yet, but I would like to do, is to have it seek them out for you and give you a few options. And so you can just click which option you want. And so all of that manual searching would be taken care of. But that's probably not something we'll have in by Dragonflight launch, maybe a little bit after.
So yeah, and like all these things, like I know I'm asking folk these questions even though I already know the answers to them, but these are all things that we're thinking about as well with the tool and how to make it work better. Like I would love to see more input on setting phase timings and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's also because it's new, like it can grow in whatever direction people need. If there's something you need, definitely reach out. It's probably possible. It may have been something we're already thinking about even, and just knowing that it would be useful to you is really valuable when we pick out what we're going to add.
Absolutely. Or what to work on next. All right, the last question for the section that I have right now, I believe we sort of already answered, but I'll read it. Is it able to tell you if the healer you're copying is getting cooldown reduction or how much from talents that reduces cooldowns to ensure you're able to mimic them? So Volk did sort of mention that briefly, that there will be a warning that maybe something's off, just double check, but it's not going to prevent you from doing it if there are cooldown reductions in play.
I'm also watching Dragonflight carefully. I know fairies are gone, which is a big source of cooldown reduction. I know that there's some weirder ones being added to stuff like Rogue. We'll just see how that ends up, and then we'll make sure they're supported in some way. It'll just depend how Dragonflight ends up.
And Volk already mentioned this, but really, like, we're so open to feedback or suggestion requests. Just if there's anything that would make your life easier, it's probably not just you, so please suggest it and we'll get on it. Because I probably want it too for my team, so. All right, I think that is it for the cooldown planner if you wanted to start fight analysis, which is very similar or related to this, but more the post poll.
Yeah, if Cooldown Planner is the pre-raid, then Fight Analysis is certainly the post-raid. This is a smaller module, but I think it can do some really interesting stuff. So let me type in the secret URL for this one. You'll never guess it.
Fight analysis.
This one is even newer. Let me just fetch a log quickly. This one won't work at all without a log because it's basically log analysis. This is not my log, but it will do. My log would be too impressive, you know. I can't show
Yeah, no.
everyone it.
Broccoli's didn't use Ironbark at all. What?
All right, this one pulls in all the data from the entire fight, so it can take a few seconds to load, sometimes as much as 30, unless it's Sylvanas, which will take it's just a really long fight.
There's a lot going on for sure.
There's also some efficiency improvements that can probably be made to make this a bit faster, but
This is a good time while it's loading to remind everyone that this is a completely free tool. Volk pays for all the servers and hosting and everything by himself. So if you do want to support him, Patreon is a great way to do that. Just throwing a plug in for Volk. But yeah, thank you for hosting this. Like, this is a lot of data.
yeah, okay. So fight analysis has a few different bits and pieces here. First is a graph showing incoming damage, healer cooldowns, and average raid health. It's honestly a bit messy right now, and we're throwing around some ideas to split it into two graphs to make it easier to read. So probably don't expect this to look like it does now when we get to Dragonflight. But the idea is that you can see how much damage your raid is taking, how your raid health is looking, and how your cooldown coverage is during those key moments. You can also add a cooldown planner plan here and overlay it to see how your planned cooldowns are aligning with the fight's damage. That way you can see if your coverage is a little bit light on, say, a shield on Dezogne at the beginning of Sepulchre. You can add cooldowns there, but it's basically your post-raid tool to make
Can you
sure that
just
your
call it
plan
by
is
his real
working.
name instead of the sausage?
I did. I don't even know if that's the correct way to
Okay.
pronounce it. No one's ever explained it to me.
Nobody has pronounced it before, so we don't know. It's just a sausage.
Damn. This is the
Heard it here
interesting bit.
first.
This
Sorry, I'm
shows
like
you.
interrupting your good presentation.
No, it's important. It's important. This shows you where your externals are going. So there's actually a lot of. You can tell this is a farm log because there's an awful lot of power infusions going on healers here. Can always tell a farm log from a prog log. You can see where your innovates are going, which healers are using externals, In my experience, that's something that is heavily underutilized. You'll often find logs where healers are only using their externals, say once or twice, or even 0 times a fight. So this is a really good way of making sure they're being used. Again, I can type in a player's name and see everything that they were up to. So this player received an innovate, gave an innovate, used a couple of iron barks. I'd give them maybe a B- rating. Could probably have been more iron barks used. The cooldown timeline is when people are using their major cooldowns. So you'll see him, you'll see Fallen Order, and then you can just compare this to your cooldown plan and make sure people are using them at the right time. Especially in guilds that are new to progression, or they're just starting heroic, or they're just starting mythic, you'll find that cooldowns sometimes aren't used on time or aren't used at all. This is a really good way to just make sure that they are being used. And honestly, this problem, I even run into this problem sometimes where I miss my cooldown or I'm not
Oh,
using my externals
absolutely.
enough. And this is just a
Something
really good way of
happens.
checking that.
Sometimes you don't even know that you're not using it until you look at something like this, and it's like this is so much easier than having your raid leader filter logs to show all your healer cooldowns. So yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of people are mentioning WoW Analyzer and stuff like that, which is WoW Analyzer is phenomenal for individual play, especially. And we felt like there was sort of a missing, like, I'm a raid leader, I'm a healing officer, and I want to analyze, damage incoming, healing outgoing in an easier way. And so this definitely, like, this is where your raid leader slash healing officer will go for that stuff.
yeah, definitely keep using WoW Analyzer for your individual stuff, but sometimes it's just useful to have a higher overview of everything happening at once.
Yeah, I think it would be cool to have like the someone asks, is it going to be raid focused or do you have plans to take it down to the personal level? I think it'd be cool to have some personal level like all in this place, but WoW Analyzer is just so awesome. It doesn't make a lot of sense to rebuild the wheel here, but maybe there's ways to pull in data from WoW Analyzer.
Potentially, I'll definitely link to WoW Analyzer from the site too, so that people can find it easier.
Yeah, or especially like links directly to a character for this poll or, whatever would be quite cool.
Yeah, definitely. The next box down here is the defensive timeline, which is very telling in a lot of cases. This tracks when people are using their defensives. It does have support for stuff like conduits that add defensive value. For example, you can see the priest fading here, which usually does very little, but with the conduit, it gives them a nice DR. So it's good to see them fading. You don't actually see that with every priest. This isn't just your healers, this is everyone in your raid. You can tell this is a pretty good raid because they're actually using their defensives very well. Once again, there's a search if you want to look at your own defensives, or if you have that one hunter that just keeps dying and you want to make sure that they're doing all that they can.
Have you considered, I'm asking mean questions, have you considered adding health pots and lock rocks to this?
I like the idea. Do you think you'd put it on this panel or a separate panel
Even a
for?
suburban or a toggle to show health pot lock rock
Yeah, I'm
usage.
interested for
Right, raid
sure.
leaders? Like you for sure want to see that. I'm a raid leader, I know you want to see that. You don't even got to tell me I know it.
Quite a lot of defensives used here. Most logs I enter into here have you don't have to scroll to see all of the defensives. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, this is actually a good comment from Delandris. They asked, how about effective value of defensive or health pot? So, considering how much DR it actually contributed to. I believe those values are accessible on WoW Analyzer, but
Yeah, they are accessible on WoW Analyzer. There's a chance we will add them here too.
it would definitely be cool. I would love to see, hey, you use blur and then died 30 seconds later and your blur didn't do anything, you goob.
Yeah, could definitely add like an amount reduced next to it or something. No promises, but I like the suggestion, and I'm gonna add that to my list. We'll see how feasible it is. The last little panel here is a bit simpler. You can just click on all of your healers to get a bit more information on them. You could easily share this with someone. It's mostly just to make sure that your healers are doing what they're supposed to. If I look at this Mistweaver here, they've taken Rising Mist, they've taken RJW. The rest doesn't really matter. I can conclude that they know what they're doing, probably. It shows you their soulbinds, conduits, and Dragonflight. It will show you all of their talents, and so you can just make sure that it matches
Check
up with
in,
whatever knowledge you
keep
have.
them in line.
Make sure they're not doing anything too weird, or if they are, that they have a good reason for it. It also
Reader
shows you their eye level.
recommendation, don't tell them they're wrong, just ask. Just ask them about the
Yep.
decision. Because they might have a reason and you might not know everything. But yeah, I think this page is so great for raid leader slash healing officer to just double check on the health of the healing team.
We can see here that the monk is a little underleveled compared to the other healers.
Possibly an alt.
Could be a Mistweaver specific problem, I don't know. But that's
That's
fight
fine.
analysis. It'll give you a bunch of cool stuff on the fight that should be useful in a lot of cases.
I
We
think you
kind of
upset the one Mistweaver in chat, by the way.
I love
I'm just,
Mistweaver.
I'm just kidding.
It's so much time over Legion and BFA where Mistweaver was not as good a spec as it should be, and now that it's really coming into its own right, we can make fun of them again.
There was a suggestion slash question. I'm turning it into a question. Do you have the ability to separate the graphs into individual healers instead of like the raid-wide view?
Not currently, but I think it's a cool idea, and the graph in particular is the thing you're most likely to see changes on, so that's definitely good feedback.
Yeah, for sure. And now is the time to suggest this stuff, so please do, because yeah, this is technically not live. It's still being developed. We're planning to make it live in Dragonflight, by Dragonflight.
Yeah, this graph especially, like we already have an in development version where it splits it into two, and we could definitely have a setting for the second graph where you can just flick between individual healers if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I know that was a ton of information. We're past an hour already, which I was not expecting. We've covered a lot, so now, like, we're really interested in any more feedback or questions you have. You guys were great about asking them during the presentation, but this doesn't have to be related to the Huey Live tool. It can be just WoW in general, or player improvement. I know that's the whole purpose of this Discord. So just how do you get better as a player in general? Anything at all you guys want to ask us, feel free to do so.
And while the questions come in, I'll just quickly stop by the Trinkets module since
Oh
this one's
yeah,
very
let's get
easy.
to that.
It's a very nice trinket graph. It'll show you all the trinkets available to you at all item levels so that you can just see at a glance what trinkets are good. I know that because they're an effect slot, there's a lot of interest in them, and so this just lists them all. You've got again raid and dungeon toggles. Dungeon
And it's
includes a little bit of DPS, so you can see Resonant Reservoir is very good for dungeons because it does a lot of damage.
color coded by item level as well, just in case you can't see.
And you can also filter it, like let's say you don't raid at all. You can just uncheck that and then it'll show you all the raids that don't drop from, all the trinkets that don't drop from raids. Or if you don't like to Mythic Plus, you could do the opposite. Legion Time Walking is only up for a few weeks, unless you're EU, in which case it's apparently up always, so you could uncheck that as well, and so on.
Very cool. I love looking at this over the course of an expansion, see how things change.
Yeah, and it supports every spec too. Every spec won't look the same. There are some trinkets that are just good for most of them, like Shadowed Orb, and I really do only mean most of them since it's pretty bad for Mistweaver. But yeah, it'll be custom made for whatever spec you pick. If you import your gear, it'll also change the trinket rankings based on your current set as well. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have a couple of questions. Again, just reiterating, this is your time to ask any questions at all, WoW related, player improvement related, anything at all. Ask now, type now. But while we're waiting for more, one fight analysis question was, would we be able to zoom into the graph? So narrow it down to a specific time frame instead of like the whole giant fight.
I would like to do that. The graph library that I'm currently using is potentially not supportive of it, but I'll add it to my list and we'll see what we can
Yeah,
do.
I like that idea for sure, because sometimes I just want to zoom in.
Yeah, definitely on a fight like Lord, you might only want to see what's going on during Swarm, and so
For
I can
sure.
see the value.
The next question, still about fight analysis, was does it track deaths plus any death information?
That's another pretty cool idea. Let me add that to my list too.
We're getting a lot of good
I think
ideas.
Warcraft Logs now does a good job at showing death information, but they should at least be represented in fight analysis in some way, and so I'll think about what would be most useful there.
Or even seeing that information overlaid with personal health bot, etc. use sometimes helps, which you can do in Warcraft logs for sure, but technically you can do all of this in Warcraft logs.
Yeah,
It's
for
just a
sure. It's
nice
about
way to
making
get
it easier.
a
Yeah.
nice view for sure. And then the last question as of right now, so please feel free to ask more, is how did you guys get to be so awesome? Volk? I'm just kidding, you don't have to answer that one.
It's all about cardio.
My answer is going to be surround yourself with good people because it's contagious and be positive, good vibes always.
Okay, her answer is better. Listen to her, not me.
I know the question wasn't serious, but that's my serious answer. The secret to being better is definitely surround yourself by good people. There are some people typing, so we'll give it a couple minutes just in case
Here's
it's
a
more questions, but go ahead.
here's something I forgot existed. For people who see colors differently, there are alternate color schemes as well
That is very cool.
that might make it a little bit easier for you to see. And if you still have any difficulty, let me know because we've got a bunch of these that we can roll out.
Yeah, I think accessibility in general, like WoW, is taking so many steps to improve certain things with the new UI and all the new options. So yeah, definitely if you see anything on QE, yeah, that stuff we're super interested in. So let us know. Definitely love the colors. A lot of thank yous in chat. Yeah, of course, we love talking about this stuff. In case you couldn't tell, so ping us, like, literally, if you see us, especially, Volk's very busy, but I love getting random pings saying hello. So, yeah, we just love you guys so much. So,
Really, any question at any time. Like you don't have to ask it now, but if you have something you'd like to know, just hit us up and we will answer you.
there's a question. What do you think of the ability to pair a video from stream/recording into the fight timeline where you click on it and the video goes to that moment? I think that is so awesome of an idea. I don't think it's something that QE will ever tackle in the near future, even though I would love to, but I can recommend, although I heard it was maybe going to be put on pause, but Squad OV is a downloadable app that does exactly that. Highly recommend Squad OV. It automatically records when you're in the middle of a poll or a dungeon. You don't have to push play or anything like that, and it connects to Warcraft logs, so you can click on like death moments, for example, and see that. It's just awesome. So
Yeah, Squad OV is really cool.
Blood DK is an honorary healer. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Hey, Blood DK was technically in Cooldown Planner, so honorary healer.
I believe that is all the questions, and I know we're past an hour by quite a lot, so we will probably go ahead and close there. But thank you guys again so much for hosting us. Thank you, Ano, Jazzy, if you're still there. I think they had a Harry Potter meeting to get to. But yeah, you guys are awesome. Keep on improving, and please share some good vibes for us.
And thank you for watching me for an hour. I said 30 to 45 minutes. I lied, didn't I?
Yeah, we were way off.
Whew.
Just so
I
much
won't
fun.
be I won't be guessing at things anymore.
All right, yep. Hit us up with any questions. We'll be hanging around in Discord for a while. So,
All
thanks
right, time for a
everyone.
2-hour lecture on Disc Priest.
Oh no, no! Turn it off. Turn it
All right, she's cutting me off. So the 2-hour sermon on Disc Priest will have to wait.
off. Thanks everyone.
And goodbye.